Hello, Jordan.
Good morning.
Good to see you again.
You too. So today we're going to talk about a team you need
Yeah, how to build a team.
for buying a house and
Right.
who's on the team. So normally in the process, it really starts out with you. So
Right, with the lender.
go ahead and explain how they get to you and then how they find the next person.
They can get to me many different ways, either through online or from a friend or from a realtor.
Right.
They say, hey, go talk to Paul, go talk to your lender, because then they'll have an idea of what you can actually afford.
Right. And that's a couple of deals we got going on right now.
That's more beneficial for you too, so you know exactly what's going on.
Right.
So if they're like, hey, I want to go see this $1 million house. Well, you can only afford 200,000. Yeah, don't waste your time.
Right.
Yeah. So from there, it's like, I think a lot of it comes from the realtor.
Right.
Because y'all are actually dealing with actual houses.
Right.
Right? We deal with contracts and with a specific house, but y'all look at a ton, y'all have other contacts. So I think once you go to the lender and connect with the realtor, then you start building out your team.
Right. So kind of the process we were just describing, the buyer contacted me through one of my lead sources and they wanted to go see a house, but before that we definitely want to make sure they got pre-approved. So send them over to Paul. I'll check them out. They're clear, good to go. We know how much they can start looking in. So we've been looking at houses, and the next person on your team will come once you put a house under contract.
Who's that?
That's going to be the inspector.
Inspector.
I have several inspectors I use all the time, but the main thing is your realtor should have a few to give you.
Right.
You shouldn't have to go out and hunt that down.
What if your realtor doesn't? Or for whatever reason, they're like, I'm not liking my guy right now. Let's go find somebody else. Where do you look?
Google. I'd say Google like home inspector. That would probably be
pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Somebody knows a home inspector. They should. And then, down the process, once the home is inspected, the next person to go out will be the appraiser, and that comes from you.
Lender. Lender has to order the appraisal. Appraisal report.
And do you pick that person, that appraiser?
No, so we have a list of people that we're allowed to choose from.
Right.
This is how all lenders are. Since the 2008 crisis, the crash, that was one of the problems that caused it, is that appraisers were just getting told, hey, go give me an appraisal for this amount on a house. And then the realtors and the lenders had too much control.
Right.
So that's why they said, okay, now you cannot choose who it is, but here's a list of approved people that you can choose from.
Right.
So we will just submit a request for an appraisal, and then somebody will pick it up. So we have no decision or power on choosing that actual person.
Right. And then another key person in this team you're building is going to be your attorney, your closing attorney.
Right.
We would have already been in contact with them. Normally, as soon as we have a contract, we submit it to a closing attorney office to start working on the title and deed prep.
Right.
I have several attorneys that I work with all the time, and that's something, once again, that the realtor should have in their pocket. But it's the buyer's choice who we use. It doesn't have to be the realtors or the sellers. It's the buyer's choice on which attorney we use.
Really, you see that a lot.
Yeah, that's because it's their money. They're the one paying for the attorney. Does that make sense?
I see the seller choosing a lot of the time too.
They're allowed to give their opinion, but the buyer's the one paying for everything.
There you go.
The seller has some fees in the closing, but the main fees, like the deed prep, the title work, that is going to be the buyer's expense. So that's why the buyer gets to choose.
Have you ever seen in a contract as a negotiation tactic where the sellers be like, listen, we're going to choose our people, and if you don't want to, then you're not going to get the house?
I think that could be illegal.
That's illegal?
Possibly.
Why is that illegal?
I think it's like steering. It's one of those terminologies where you're pushing clients to a certain place. But like right now I'm working on a foreclosure deal. We have to use their closing office, their attorney, because it's a bank-owned property, and something like that within the contract of that property. Because you're getting it at such a discounted rate, it has to go through this. It's not really an attorney, it's more of a closing,
Like an auction house?
yeah. So I've seen it that way, but yeah,
I get that makes sense too.
normally buyer gets to pick, and the realtor should have several options for you. I use the same people over and over again: Maddox, Thornley, and Sanders. They're fantastic, but I have others as well. If you don't want to work with them, I'm not going to say, hey, you must. I'm just going to tell you.
Right, you're giving them options. But you tell them who you like to work with and who does a good job for you.
And that's the same thing on inspector. I
Right.
have several.
Right. So, who else do we need? So you got the closing attorney. Title will most likely come with the closing attorney.
Right.
You have your inspector, appraisal from the lender.
Right.
So what other kind of people do you want to build a good team? Let's say you want to be an investor, or you're going to buy multiple houses in the next 20 years, right? You'd rather just have a good team that you can go to.
Right.
So
Some people would be contractors.
contractors,
If on your own house, but like you said, investors, or you buy multiple houses, whatever your situation, you're going to want to have a reliable person that can handle certain tasks. Don't expect one guy to do it all, but there are those guys out there. You might want to have a roofer. You might want to have your general contractor for like interior cosmetic work. A plumber.
Yeah.
Plumbers are good to have, man. I use Roto-Rooter, which is a big company.
hard to find too.
They did a good job, but I would have loved to have a local plumber. The ones that I know in my area, they're great people. They were just so slammed because everyone knows they do such good quality work, so I couldn't get them when I needed them. So finding some good contractors like that you know and trust, do quality work.
Yeah.
Huge.
It is huge.
To have on your belt.
Hard to find too. Might not be the first person that you ask or talk to.
Or use.
What about an interior designer or interior decorator?
Definitely.
If you're going to build, if you're going to renovate.
Right. Definitely, if you don't have that eye. I know I don't have that eye. My wife has that. That's her department.
I don't know any of that.
But you can find some of those. I've worked with a couple. When I was working on Smith Lake doing construction, Cornerstone has an awesome design team. They match all of your exteriors to your interiors, all the way down to your grout color.
Nice.
Just stuff you never think about till you're in that position.
Nice. And obviously, if you're going to go the construction route, you need a builder.
Right.
So if it's not going to be just a regular track home, then you need a custom builder.
Right.
So what's the difference in track homes and custom builds?
So track house is they are going to build a house to their plans, and you can buy it if you would like. Custom home is you have involvement. You're there picking granites, you're picking flooring, color, you're actually making decisions. Whereas a track house is, this is what it is, do you want it or not? Some will allow some customization. Some, like Smith Douglas Homes we used to work with, they had several types of selections, but it was like, here's your 4 options, which do you want? And that would go for everything, the carpet, the exterior, but it was a set way.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's like they're going to be like, you want red or black tile, something like that.
Right.
But you're getting tile.
Right.
This is our home, but you're just going to buy it.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. But which ones are more expensive?
Custom homes. Yeah, definitely custom homes.
Because of the time and the...
There's a lot of energy put in when dealing with custom clients, especially when you're dealing with a luxury market like Smith Lake or Mountain Brook, and you're building these custom homes. There's a lot of details you don't think about until you start building a home. And it's not always easiest, especially when you have change orders or plans don't go the way you thought they would.
Yeah.
They never will, by the way. Construction.
But what does?
Yeah.
whatever that.
Construction and building is all about improv and just going with the flow.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, what else would you need if you're trying to buy a house or buy houses?
Right. You mean in the team aspect?
Yeah, on the team aspect, you got lender, realtor, inspector, appraisal taken care of, contractor, maybe a interior designer for your renovation, for the vision, the builder.
Well, you need your movers.
Movers, that's right.
Unless you're totally okay with doing it yourself, that's fine too. But some movers, whether the seller moving out, the buyer moving in.
When do you need to talk to the mover?
I wouldn't talk to a mover until after the appraisal. Well, I shouldn't say that. I have seen movers who have been booked out, months in advance. So maybe start the conversation. But I want to heed warning from a personal experience. When you sign a contract to buy a house, that closing date is not necessarily the actual day the house will close, just because things may need to be adjusted. So I had a client actually order movers to move in the day that our contract said it would close. The issue was we had some repairs that need to be made by the seller.
Right.
So we weren't able to close on that exact date. It was nobody's fault, but they couldn't get a refund, and so ended up spending about $10,000 on movers far too early. Thankfully, we were able to negotiate to allow the buyer to move into that home.
That sucks.
It was a stressful situation, but we handled it, and I was able to get the buyers into the house early. I don't recommend that because thankfully the buyers went forward and bought the home. But if they weren't going to buy that house and they had moved in early, we could get in a lot of legal problems.
And then would they have to pay the mover to move out again? So a mover costs how much? $10,000?
Depends how much. I believe it's every truckload. And miles, how many miles you drive.
So they must have been moving for like a long way away.
They're moving out of state.
Okay.
So we were able to handle that situation, but I want to forewarn and set expectations. Be careful with your movers.
Yeah. All right. So let's walk through an example. If I today, February 27th,
right,
I get a contract on a house to close March 27th.
Right.
When should I first reach out to movers?
Well, like I said, I would start the conversation. If you're sure that's the house you're going to buy, you don't have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You're looking at other houses still.
Hopefully, if you have a contract, that you're all in it.
I've seen people who aren't, but
right. Hopefully, ideally.
Go ahead and start that conversation, but don't.
So day one.
Yeah.
The 27th.
Day
just
one.
Call and say, hey, listen, I'm supposed to do this. Get it scheduled. Ask fees and stuff like that.
Right.
Okay.
And see about their timing. Like, hey, we're expected to close in 30 days. Would that work for you? And they'll say, yeah, sure, no problem. We just need a week's notice or whatever. Then cool. Then we'll talk, in a couple weeks down the road.
What about when movers are booked up for months?
We'll have to call a couple more, Never settle with the first mover. Call around, shop, see different prices.
Okay. So there will be somebody that can help you move.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You can find somebody. So don't let them say, oh, you can't do it.
You don't necessarily have to move in the day of closing either. Depending on your living situation, or let's say you're renting your lease or the house you're selling, if you're able to stay a few days and move items over time, it's fine. Depends on your situation. It really does.
All right. So let's say I just sold my house and I have to move out.
Right.
All right. It's March 27th. But now when I buy my new house, they say I can't move in for a week.
Right.
What do I do with my stuff for that week?
You could do a storage unit. That's probably the best situation there.
Just Google a storage unit.
Yeah, probably nearby the house you're moving into.
Or family members.
Right, that too.
But then, if you have a lot of stuff, one family member going to be able to hold all that for a week?
Probably not. I would recommend storage unit just to keep family out of it. Because even though they're allowing you to do it, does not mean they want you to do it.
Right. So, can you get weekly or 2-week rental for storage unit?
I think so. I mean, in worst case scenario, you pay per month, use it for 2 weeks. It's probably like $50 to $100 for a big unit.
I mean, it's probably better to get a month anyway,
Right, just in case.
just in case. Because you delayed a week already.
Right,
What if you're delayed another 2 weeks?
right.
Well, then you're. So, where do you live for that week?
Gotta figure it out. Sometimes hotels if you need to, or family, friends.
Storage unit?
Storage unit? No, I don't recommend that.
I don't think you can do that. They let you sleep in those
No.
things? That's gotta be a law.
Yeah, you cannot stay in a storage unit.
Is that a law?
Yes. I'm sure it's in a contract as well. You cannot sleep in your storage unit.
How do they know? Cameras?
Cameras.
That'd be a good way to sleep cheaply if you need to until they kick you out.
But I'd say those are the primary people you need on your team. And pretty much from this, we've seen that most of the people come from the realtor. Your realtor should have those local connections for you.
Yeah.
And
your lender should too. But
right,
realtors are dealing with them more than lenders will.
right. I mean, this isn't my first rodeo, so I know inspectors, lenders, attorneys, simply because of the number of deals that I've already closed and the relationships I've built in the past. So.
Right. Okay, cool. I can't think of anything else you need.
No, you should be good to go to get that team set up.
Sweet. Oh, should we give a shout out?
Yeah, always give a shout out.
Yeah. We are at Vitola Fine Cigars in Mount Brook. So we want to give a shout out to our gracious hosts. If you want a cigar, go to vitolafinecigars.com.